Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Why Investing is Essential, the Business Case for Performance Sustainability, presented by AMCS. My name is Mallory Shapansky, and I'm the event and content producer for the Recycling Today Media Group, and I'll be helping moderate today's event. Today's presenters are Jeff Aardsma, Vice President of Market Development at AMCS, and Jyoti Agarwal, Director of Environmental Programs at Reworld. Before we get started, I'd like to thank AMCS for sponsoring and hosting this webinar. I'd also like to remind everyone that if you have a question for the presenters, to please submit them via the chat or Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen in Zoom, and we will save all the questions until the end of the presentation. I'll now turn it over to Jeff.
Mallory, and welcome everyone. Really excited to have you join us on today's webinar. As Mallory mentioned, I'm joined here today by Jyoti. Jyoti, would you mind giving yourself a quick introduction to our audience?
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everyone. Jyoti Agarwal. I am with Reworld. I've been with Reworld for about 9 years, coming up now in September. And prior to that, I've spent nearly 2 decades in the environmental field, and I hold the title of Director of Environmental Programs.
Wonderful. And thank you for being here today and sharing the wonderful work that you and the Reworld team are doing. I'd like to also thank Recycling Today for the partnership and hosting today's webinar, and of course, Reworld for bringing us the great content from Jyoti. I'm Jeff Aardsma, Vice President of Market Development here at AMCS. I've been with AMCS for about 4.5 years, but I've been in the environmental services industry for nearly 20 years, working across North America, and really excited to bring today's topic to you. First, I'd like to set the scene a little bit with AMCS's position on performance sustainability. It's a way that we're running our business and a way that we're bringing innovation to the market. We see ourselves as a global leader in performance sustainability. And for us, it's not just about cutting margins or any one business metric. It's about driving overall business performance. AMCS, for context, supports over 600 million tons of material managed through our systems globally across 37 countries. Through our systems, we also track over 9.7 billion tons of CO2 emissions. We optimize over 700,000 vehicles and help reduce fleet emissions. And we support over 2 million employees with safety first programs across 60 countries. For us, this isn't just about compliance. It's about creating resilient, profitable, and future-ready businesses. And we look at the North American waste management landscape specifically. We see a market that's valued at over $200 billion with strong growth projected over the next several years. Some of the key trends that we're tracking are certainly the growth in industrial and municipal solid waste that our industry is managing inside of North America. Specifically, we're seeing plastic and e-waste segments as really fast growing areas. And Americans specifically are generating more waste every year, and specifically plastic waste, with consumer packaging being a leading area of industrial growth, over 36 million tons of plastic being generated in America annually. And so how are companies operating North America reacting to this type of demand and shifts in the market? We're seeing that customers in the market are generally seeking high value differentiated services, whether that's advanced recycling, ESG aligned reporting, or innovative waste management techniques to help minimize the impact of the materials that they generate. And we see that the industry is responding with strategic investments and service innovation to meet this demand. And really, this innovation is coming in a shift to the circular economy. We see circularity now as a competitive differentiator that companies are leveraging in order to provide more value and streamline the supply chain. We see a lot of movements where manufacturers, for example, are moving into the supply chain. Recently, a global logistics firm acquired a metals recycling and steel manufacturing company, securing millions of tons of ferrous materials annually to help build a closed loop supply chain and reduce their carbon intensity. We're seeing national waste and recycling providers moving up the supply chain by investing heavily into polymer centers to not only provide a raw material into the supply chain, but actually process it and make sure that it's ready for manufacturing, really driving that circular nature, enriching the capture of plastic materials, and making sure that they're going into manufacturing. A key point for AMCS is partnering with large-scale waste providers to deploy our Vision AI service, which is helping to identify contamination at the point of collection, ensuring that higher quality recyclables are possible by minimizing the amount of contamination that even ends up at a recycling facility. For AMCS, performance sustainability is built across 3 operational pillars, many of which we'll explore on today's webinar. We see resource maximization as a key outcome of leveraging technology. For us, this means optimizing recovery, reducing contamination, increasing diversion. We also focus on transport and logistics, aiming to reduce fuel use, improve routing, and increase fleet uptime. And we focus on safety and sustainability, where we can help to automate compliance, enhance safety, and align with ESG reporting standards. From a principles perspective, we focus on health and safety, resource maximization, measurable impact, and ultimately efficient operations. And this helps embed sustainability into daily operations, and more importantly, helps the companies in our industry focus on top-line revenue growth. So today we'll be joined by Jyoti, and we'll have a chat about how Reworld is exhibiting these principles inside of their core growth techniques. So Jyoti, thank you for joining us again. To kick us off, tell us a little bit about what performance sustainability looks like for your customers and how is it turning into demand for your services?
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. So maybe I could start off with a little intro to what Reworld does. We offer sustainable waste solutions. Essentially, we offer services to our customers to divert waste away from landfill. And the reason for that is we see value in making sure that we're not impacting the environment through management of waste. If our customers here on the webinar today are familiar with the waste hierarchy, the EPA, EU, and the United Nations have set a strategy for how waste should be managed. And landfills lie at the bottom of that waste hierarchy because it has the greatest impact on the environment, with, of course, prevention being at the very top. Prevent waste, there's no impact from it, followed by reuse, recycle, energy recovery, and then, like I said, last is landfilling. And so for us, sustainability is embedded in our core operation. But coming to your question about what does performance sustainability look like for our customers, it really is ensuring that we as a solutions provider can, in the long run, provide long-lasting performance for how their waste is managed by us. So how many tons of waste are we diverting from a landfill? Great, you have a tonnage number, but then what? right? What understanding for it's very important for our customers to understand what are the benefits of doing that. Why should they be diverting waste away from a landfill? And so there's significant impacts. Landfills are the third largest contributor of methane. Anthropogenic methane, that is man-made methane, to the atmosphere. So by diverting waste away from landfills, you reduce the amount of methane that can go into the atmosphere. And our customers have, the forward-thinking ones, they do have goals and targets that are set around reducing the waste that they generate. But you just mentioned earlier, Jeff, that waste is on the rise. You mentioned plastic waste, e-waste, and even society, just us in general as a people in the United States, we generate nearly, upwards of 250 million tons a year. And most of that, over 60% of that goes to a landfill today in the United States. So when we are working with customers, whether it's private businesses, whether it is municipalities, we are helping them with, one, diverting waste away from landfills. And this means that this allows those customers to report back on reaching their waste reduction targets. If there are greenhouse gas related targets, then waste has a role to play. We're able to demonstrate that by diverting waste away from landfills, you are able to avoid the generation of methane gas, and therefore it counts towards your carbon target. So we have several different, how are we meeting this demand, right, for our customers is in many different ways. It's very exciting at Reworld because we started off in the field of energy recovery. Over the last 4 years, we've drastically changed. We got acquired by EQT, and what EQT challenged us with was they said, you are already well established in the energy recovery tier of the waste management hierarchy. We want you to move more materials up the waste hierarchy, more towards recycling and reuse. So they actually connected our sustainability performance metrics with financial metrics in our financing structure. So for us, that's where it began, because our owner has that vision of making sure that we are conducting business in a responsible way and generating benefits, not just for our own operations, but for those of our customers. And so really that's kind of what it looks like. The more tons we divert away from a landfill, that's one KPI that we get measured against. And we are required to grow that KPI by 2.5% by the year 2025. So that's by the end of this year. Yeah. The second KPI is increasing the amount of recycled and reused waste. And that is the more challenging one, right? So that KPI, our target is to grow that by 25% by the end of this year. And then by the end of 2030, we have to increase that particular target, reach that goal to 40%. And so how do our customers, what does it mean for our customers? It's really waste that we're managing for our customers that is going to help us meet this goal. And so it's really, that's kind of how it pans out for us. It's a little bit different, significantly different than a traditional company that might be in the manufacturing sector. But that's what it looks like for us.
No, I think it's a great demonstration of how to look at business growth, customer value, right, and environmental stewardship in a manner that leads to financial and business performance. Certainly, there is, at least for your owners, a direct link between those KPIs that they've challenged you to achieve and the business performance that will come as a result of you pursuing those goals, but you're doing it in a prescribed way that is setting you apart in the market. How do you find your approach to reaching those goals coming to fruition as you competitively differentiate yourself in the market? How do your customers react to that, and how is it helping you to open up and find new opportunities for growth?
That's a great question. Yeah. So like I said, in the last 3-4 years is where we've seen the drastic change. And what our current leadership recognized was that if we want to increase or meet that reuse and recycle target, we need to differentiate ourselves by offering more creative and more imaginative options for our customers. And so what we have seen is we've seen almost a double 50x growth in 2x growth in the number of facilities that we have. We had roughly about 30 to 40 facilities in our portfolio, and we're now upwards of 90. And the type of facilities have changed significantly. We now offer wastewater treatment. We also offer what is called alternative engineered fuels. So essentially, when you're looking at an industry like the cement industry, it's very difficult for a cement industry to decarbonize. They can do it only one of two ways. There's only two ways actually that they can do it. Either they change their product or they change the fuel that they combust in order to provide that energy that's required in the cement kiln. And what we offer is we can take waste as an alternative fuel and supply that to a cement kiln. Now, this is a very popular notion in Europe, but in North America, it's in its infancy. So why cement kilns? Because cement kilns, if they were a country, they are the third largest contributor of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, following US and China. So having that kind of a relationship for an outlet, but really speccing out that product, because they have strict requirements for what can and cannot go into that cement kiln, right? And that needs to happen somewhere. So that's where our growth is, primarily in our what we call MPFs, or material processing facilities. This is where a lot of this assessment of what are the wastes coming into our facilities, what do they look like, which ones of those can be directed towards alternative engineered fuels, the ones that cannot be directed towards those, what can be done with those. And so, that's really, they're very dynamic facilities. And as you can imagine, as our customers, if they have an off-spec stream, they reach out to us and say, hey, I've got this, what can you do? But it has to meet a recycling criteria. I don't want it to go to energy recovery, or yes, it can go to an energy recovery. So these are some very real situations and decisions that we are encountering on a day-to-day basis. And now for customers that don't really have the readiness to, reduce their waste, but still have targets to meet, we also offer carbon or renewable energy credits that are generated from either our thermomechanical treatment facilities and also from the avoidance of greenhouse gas emissions if your material is going for recycling. So we have the ability within our own employee force to offer these advisory services, and a lot of what we offer to our customers is based on third-party verified products in terms of, if our TTFs, our thermomechanical treatment facilities, also known elsewhere as waste to energy, avoid 2.4 tons of CO2e per ton of MSW that gets combusted. This has been verified by a third party per ISO standards. And a lot of our messaging also is based on sound science and literature. So it's very different from another waste management company in the sense that, your own baby is always beautiful to you, but when you can have someone else say that it's beautiful, maybe it has a little bit more meaning. But yeah, so I think in this context, that plays a big role when you can have a third party come out and confirm, so that there's more trust and transparency around some of the benefits that we are coining and delivering to our customers.
I think it's a very important point when you can have that auditability, and your customers can then see the value that you provide, not just through your assertions, but also as confirmed by a third party. It's an interesting concept where your ownership has valued sustainable measurement, but as you grow with your customers, most certainly your customers' ownership therefore values the specific sustainability targets that you can help your customers meet, right? And there's a growing value as that data and certainly the auditable and credible data can proliferate from the waste generator through to the different financial stakeholders that may exist there. So it's a really interesting community of interest that would be coming around the data that you provide to your customers. I'm interested in the consultative approach that you take to waste management, and especially as you talk about the hierarchy and that there's different values to waste the farther you move up the hierarchy. Accessibility to these types of facilities is difficult, right? It's not everywhere in the country that you'd have all these options available. And so, oftentimes you'd have to look at an analysis of the waste being generated by a customer or prospect of yours, the options available to handle that waste, and the impacts of, say, the transportation, right, and moving it around to the different facilities to ultimately process it at the highest value. How do you kind of take that many-to-many mapping of, waste that a customer or prospect of yours might have, and the different options you have to handle it? How do you find that right mix of transportation and processing that fits the customer's goals?
Right. Now that's a great question. So we actually have a very solid solutions team that offers total waste management. And so of course not every customer goes for that, but we are able to provide that. And the way that they operate is, starting with conducting either waste audits followed by gap analysis in a couple of different ways. You could either provide us with the data that you have that you want us to look at, or we can even provide expertise that comes on site and are sort of embedded in your operations to understand what your challenges are. And these are not going to necessarily be quick fixes, right? Because we're talking about materials. We're talking about materials in large scale and quantity. So they occupy space. They have to get moved. You need energy to move these materials. So there's a lot of logistics involved around it. So these are, our customers come to us with that understanding, and sometimes we have to educate them that these are not going to be fixes that happen maybe within that quarter, but we're talking sustainability, right? So we're talking long term. It might even drive more upstream towards, changes might drive more upstream towards product design. So it all depends upon where that customer is on that sustainability spectrum in terms of their maturity. And then we encounter from those that really are looking for just it's waste, just get rid of it, and then there are those that are extremely sophisticated in their ESG journey and have very specific targets and mandates. So our approach, again, we like to meet our customers where they are at so that it's not one solution that's going to fit everybody. Secondly, not all solutions are for all types of materials. Materials have their own chemistry. Even if you have, say, a plastic waste stream, a customer would like to know, hey, what is the best way for me to dispose of or treat this waste? Is it landfill? Is it going to thermomechanical treatment facility for energy recovery? Or is it going to alternative engineered fuels where it's then eventually going to get combusted in a cement kiln and displace fossil fuel? So we have the ability, we have developed proprietary, what we call the material specific life cycle analysis tool, which will quantify based on your waste the amount of greenhouse gas you can avoid if your material went to those 3 different potential outlets. Now, let's say if it's not an energy recovery related output that you're looking for and you're looking more for recycling and reuse, we have a vast expense network with other suppliers and other waste management solutions, because we need to recognize that no one company, no one sector can do it all. We have all grown to become so complicated and so interrelated in how we work and how we advance life on a day-to-day basis that we have to have these relationships and reliance. And so we're very proud to leverage that if we can't do an in-house recycling for you, we will find the right partner. So, but why would you come to me and not go straight to that partner? Because we're going to provide you with that one-stop shop service in terms of the logistics around it. But, at the end of the day, it's being able to quantify the environmental benefits that we're delivering for the services that we're providing. That is what distinguishes us from a competitor. And if we can provide that technically supported report to you, which you as a customer can then take to your verifier and have it be applied towards your ESG story, towards your meeting your targets, then it's a win-win for both.
No, I think it's a very interesting, and since you brought up the topic of reporting, I'd like to dig into that a little bit. There's reporting almost as a journey as well, right? And as you start on your sustainability journey, you would look at reporting as a benchmark, right? Just simply the task of measurement and starting to get an understanding of where you are, what standards can you expect? Are you consistent, or do you have variability, inside of the metrics that you might be reporting out on? And I'm speaking from an environmental impact perspective. And you mentioned your more mature kind of customer base, those that are farther along their sustainability journey, they've moved past benchmarking, right? Their mechanisms of measurement are probably well established, and they're more so on to how do I impact my performance? How do I reduce the environmental impact, or move closer to my goal, right? That maybe I've published out to the market or to my stakeholders. Where do you typically find customers in that journey? Do you find a lot of customers today are looking to just kind of establish that benchmark? They're kind of new to, say, sustainability or environmental impact reporting, or do you find that there's a higher volume of your customers that are actively trying to pursue a goal, And the reporting they're looking for is more, how do we increase our performance? What actions can we take? How do we influence the outcome? Interested in where you find your customers on that journey.
Yeah, we're starting to see more and more customers asking us for performance metrics on some of the metrics that we talked about in terms of landfill diversion rate for them. If it's wastewater that's recycled, if whether it's hydrocarbons that have been refined and therefore put back into use into the circular economy, shredding rubber tires, what have you. But at the end of the day, what is their performance against those metrics that we're able to provide to them, so that they can check and they can report in their own sustainability reports, and count towards their financial goals as well. So I must say that in the past, we didn't have so many requests, but there's a lot more requests coming out of, more frequent reporting, metrics reporting on a monthly or a quarterly basis. We haven't seen too many requests around material-specific greenhouse gas reporting, avoidance of that. We are seeing more requests around, hey, what role does my waste operation have in terms of how I manage my greenhouse gas inventory? And now, in order to inform that better, my material life cycle analysis tool can give you that detailed data. So that's the area of growth we're looking to provide, because it's a really neat tool. Like I said, it is third-party verified, and we're continuing on the journey to get more such methodologies validated by third parties, so that customers can have more reliance on the data that we provide to them. Because at the end of the day, if you are looking to grow as a business, you have educated customers nowadays. That's one, right? So your stakeholders, whether it's customers, whether it's your board, whether it's communities where you're operating, everybody requires data, and they want to understand, how can I trust this data? With business, that's always been, a friction area, right? Being able to trust each other from a business and community perspective. And these are areas, this is one way to provide that confidence and build that trust with your stakeholders, when you can back it up with independent third-party verified and validated information.
That's great. And really ultimately, where you have reliable data, you've made a valuable service, that's certainly in demand. Being a technology, obviously focused company ourselves at AMCS, we've talked about a complex business growth journey that Reworld has gone through, and obviously a complex execution of the services that you provide to your customers. So you've increased the number of facilities that you have in your network. Obviously, you have your own operation, but you have subcontractors and partners and relationships there in order to put together that full story for your customers. You have field personnel that are doing implant services and providing consulting services, right? So you have a lot of employees out in the field, and ultimately you need to tie it together, in a data-driven and reporting and verifiable reporting deliverable, outside of obviously the critical service of managing the physical waste. Interested a little bit of kind of from within your tech stack, what's working well? Where are you finding benefits from automation? We'd have to mention any use of AI, of course, is of great interest to the audience. And if you had a view into the technologies that would really help you that don't exist today, like what would those be? Just to dig a little bit into your tech stack.
Sure. So, I want to start with all the metrics that we deliver to our customers are metrics that we have to measure, which come off of our own operations, right? So to give you an example, our thermomechanical treatment facilities, we are heavily regulated. We're essentially a power plant that does not combust fossil fuel like oil or coal or what have you. We burn trash. And we burn trash and then we make electricity from it and we recover metals. That's what a TTF, thermomechanical treatment facility, does. So it's heavily regulated, as you can imagine. We have to measure, we have limits on how much material comes through our facilities. So we've got inbound metrics, weighing the tons, outbound metrics for ash that gets disposed where, so we've got those fundamental metrics and that's happening, I don't know, roughly what, 200, 400 times a day with the number of trucks that come in and go out. So we have to be able to capture that. And these units, these boiler units, they run 24/7, just like any other power plant. And so there is continuous emissions that come out of our stack. Those have to be measured. We have to take measurements every minute is what we report, but we have to take them even more frequently on the environmental impacts of the pollutants that get released into the environment. So as you can imagine, the entire control system behind it needs to have an automated platform. It needs to be able to provide real-time metrics to our control room operators so that they can manage the combustion process and control it to avoid exceedances or excess emission events and things of that nature. Some of our permits, if have they only have 6 minutes of time to respond to an anomaly that may be happening. And now keep in mind, we don't get to control the waste feed, right? Think of your trash bag. What are you throwing away in it, right? And that trash is coming through the facility. Now, my legal department will tell me here, just be careful. We do have a very strict, permits approvals process as well. We're not certain. We do have to check and make sure that we're not taking things that we're not supposed to. So I will caveat with that. But coming back to the original point of the measurements, real-time information, we rely heavily on various tools from process control, as you can imagine, for the combustion, for the heat exchanging that's happening within those units, for our air pollution control system, whether they're scrubbers or bag houses, or even cooling down a lot of the heat energy that has been expended. We've got turbines on the back end that are generating electricity. So I'm saying all this just to give you a feel for how heavily engineered these processes are. But once all of that information is generated and it's provided to the controller, a big part of it is also training our controllers to be able to use that information. So upskilling them, updating the software systems themselves. We also have regular physical testing that happens in our stack and for our ash samples as well. And so that goes back to your very sophisticated sampling trains and then eventual testing with GC mass specs, what have you. So when we're looking at whether it's operations or testing and sampling, there's a lot of measurement and monitoring that's going on a regular basis. But there's also that element of providing distilled data to decision makers within the company who are not sitting in that control room anymore. Those that have more of a management responsibility of decision making for the entire facility, of strategic vision, creating trends around our performance. And so that's where we end up with visualization tools that we are required that we use. There's some of our processes, the way we've grown organically is start out with a manual process and then work on automating it. And now coming to the future with AI, I think after sustainability, AI is probably the most used term these days, right? And we do have a very large data-related project that our IT data analytics team has been working on for some time now, which is essentially bringing together a lot of these performance metrics, aligning that against business data as well. Because as you can imagine, when we log in an opportunity into one of our platforms, we also need to log in what is the treatment type, which facility did it go to, when did it happen, what is the revenue associated with it. So having all those links occur within that one enterprise-based platform is what I think AI is now starting to inform, so that we can increase the speed at which we do things. There's also safety is another aspect that, Jeff, you mentioned earlier when you were talking about ACMS is, this waste management, it's a dirty business. And when you come to some of our facilities where the waste gets dumped or tipped on the floor in order for further processing, we have to inspect it. We have to and that can, that's somewhere I see AI and vision. You mentioned a vision AI, which I'm actually very curious to hear about. If we have time to share, you can talk a little more about that. Is how can we use imaging so that I don't have to put a person on this floor where there are trucks coming in, front end loaders going in and out, pushing, removing, chunky material that's not supposed to be there. So, using that kind of vision imaging for somebody to sit back in their office and say, right, that's the piece, stop all process, go pick that out, create that safe haven for the employee who absolutely has to be there. And so those are some great opportunities where, newer technology can help keep our people safe, and then also increase the speed at which we can deliver metrics, so we can assess our performance.
Yeah, no, I think there's a heavy theme of moving from reactive to proactive, on this. A key area of focus for AMCS is enabling our customers to be able to actually use their data. I brought up the topic of reporting, and you can look at it as a historical, record of what has happened, or you can look at it as an indicator of how you should build an action plan to improve your performance. And it's a lot of the ways that we look at using data, not just to document and record what's happened in the past, which is important, right? And you have to do that, but it's the frequency with which you can measure and the ease of distribution of that data that can lead to actionable insights that actually help you perform better as a business, provide more value to your customers, operate more safely for your employees. Those are things that we think about all the time. Interestingly, you brought up just some common themes that are in any technology discussion, which are those of what data matters, right? Like what do we have to measure? Now, interestingly, you have a highly regulated environment, and so what you measure is mandated, right? Not everybody in the audience has that similar mandate. A lot of the companies that we work with in the industry are in search of what's the most meaningful things for them to measure, and how can they use that measurement to help improve their business or their services. So it's interesting to understand the scope of what you kind of deal with there. And then there's change management and adoption, right? Just because you measure something, just because you give people data points, doesn't mean always that they're going to do the things that you would intend them to do, right? Human behavior is hard to change. And so having that management visibility so that your leadership can create a culture that allows you to adopt that data and really drive toward those actionable insights. That's a lot of where we see the return on any technology investment coming, right? You kind of have to have all the pieces together, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to measure what's meaningful. You have to present it in a way that people know what to do with it, and then you have to have a culture that's primed and incentivized to act upon it. Without those, right, then you're probably stuck in a bit of a circle that's difficult to break out of. But we see that those are the key tenets of a successful program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we probably didn't talk about is that difference between those lagging indicators and leading indicators. And to your point about how do you coin them? How do you understand what's relevant to you? For us, it goes all the way up to our board, where you have a designated person who is responsible for that sustainability performance for the organization. And then for us, when you're responsible for a sustainability performance for Reworld's organization, also includes in that all of our customers, because they are the ones who make Reworld who we are. And so having that one point person and a board that holds that person and that team accountable for performance, when you show them that you are not chasing lagging indicators, but you are working more upstream, identifying what might be a near miss indicator, what might a leading indicator look like, and then developing your action plan around that. Okay, today's data shows I'm at 60% performance. How do I drive that to upwards of 90? What's my plan? And then, and that's actually a real example that we're dealing with today. Last week we launched one of our key permit compliance related dashboard. And we're actually starting to develop that strategy as a team. Why? Because our board wants to know.
You're speaking my language. I love the differentiation, right? And a goal means nothing if you're not measuring kind of every day. How are you impacting that goal, right? And those measurements are different, right? Like ultimately, where you're trying to get to, you can't measure in a smaller time frame, right? So you kind of need to break it down and understand, what am I doing every day? What are we doing every month? And are we progressing in those areas? And then you should see the resulting impacts over a longer time period. I want to be conscious of time. We have a couple questions in the chat. One we've got from one of our audience members. Do you resell plastics, for example, HDPE, from your processing facilities?
So yeah, that would be something that we would extend into our network, because if the resale is for a recycling use case or reuse case, that's where we would do that. But if you're asking in terms of like traditional, conventional plastic commodities, we're not in the business of taking your single stream or those kinds of, that's not our business. But certainly if it's a specialized waste, which you're looking to make sure that the plastic does find an outlet with a strong reuse case, we will do that for sure.
And I think that's one of those interesting topics of, plastics can be very complex. Right? Not all plastics are made the same. Not all plastics are only plastic. And so understanding, what that material is, and then finding the highest value in processing it, right? The highest on the hierarchy, what's the best use of that? Is that as an alternative fuel, as a, classic commodity where you'd, process that, those sort of things. That's interesting. Um, there's another question related to chemical recycling plants, and we didn't really touch too much on chemical recycling. Is chemical recycling something that Reworld's in the business of? And if so, are you building those plants today or in the future?
So chemical recycling, as it's known to be today, no, we're not in the business of that. So we're not building plants for that. But um, I'll give you a case study of one particular customer who, at the end of the pandemic, had a lot of hand sanitizer left over. And now nobody needed it because we were past the pandemic, and we're talking truckloads. And we're talking about them and being like, like the dispensing bottle type of thing. So it's not like you're
Packaging,
talking about a vat, but there's a container. Now the container's got plastic, it's got the little spring, so there's metal in it. So, and they didn't want to throw it away. And if as you may already know, a lot of the sanitizer is alcohol. And alcohol may expire on your shelf because you are bound by those regulations, but it really hasn't expired as a chemical. You just can't sell it anymore. And so we were able to actually take that in and find an ethanol recycling outlet for that customer. We were able to provide a separation of the container. The spring goes out separate, the pump and the different plastics are separated as well. And the fluid itself, the ethanol itself, is collected and then sent over for ethanol recycling. And one of the things that does is now you are not throwing a material away as a hazardous waste. So for that customer, you've just eliminated the expense that they would otherwise have from managing haz waste because the ethanol went for recycling. So there are regulatory outlets that we can tap into in order to make sure that you, as a customer, get that exemption. Secondly, while we were able to get that exemption, that customer was also able to create a really great story around how they're keeping their material in the circular economy on a local brand or their one particular product type. And that goes a long way as they tell their sustainability story to their customers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a great cue to, always recognize that there's multiple options available to manage waste, and especially as you're dealing with larger generators of waste that might have those bulk type of events. They might have a dynamic product offering, right? And therefore you might have that expiring, kind of situation that seeking out experts in the field talking and understanding your options can potentially lead you to a very valuable outcome rather than just looking at it as an expense. That's a great story.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. Maybe just leave us with a bit of insight. What are you looking forward to most with Reworld in the future? Opportunities that you're pursuing, things we maybe haven't covered today. What makes you excited to show up to work every day? Looking forward.
I'll tell you, it's I love the our mission at its core. That's what attracted me to Reworld in the first place. A little bit of my background. I grew up in India and came to the United States as a teenager, and I've lived here since. I see the state of waste in developing countries, specifically in India, and there is so much work to be done. So I take great pride in working at a company that's in the business of diverting waste from a landfill. And I'm very happy to see that our company's leadership is looking to expand ways in which we can manage the different types of wastes. It's the waste challenge is really huge, and if we all want to work more towards reducing the depletion of natural resources, contribute to reducing this climate change impacts that we're all starting to see, and at the same time have a profitable and sustainable business, then we need to look at, how we need to look at our wastes. Because I think when I think about waste, I think of you're paying for the same thing twice if you really think about it, right? The first time is
Yeah.
when you bought it, and the second is now you don't have any use for it, so now you have to pay to get rid of it. That just doesn't make business sense, paying for something twice. And it's a really good opportunity. So I am very excited to see us grow, particularly in areas where there is not much of such sustainable waste solutions available to businesses. To be able to have a footprint in those areas is what is very exciting, and it's the people at Reworld. Really, they show up every day. Like I said, waste is a dirty business, and I would invite y'all to. We offer tours, to our TTFs. Come take a look. It's open to public. You just got to sign up. It's very eye-opening to see how much work goes into the way we manage our society's waste.
Yeah. Well, it's a great insight, and thank you for leaving us with those thoughts. I think we've, covered a lot of the topics that I was excited to cover today, and really appreciate the way that you're making sustainable waste management more accessible to the market. So, congratulations, and thank you for the insights today. Mallory, we'll hand it back over to you to close us out.
Yeah, thank you both so much for sharing everything today. If you have any follow-up questions that you didn't want to ask during this Q&A portion, feel free to email the email address listed here, and Jeff can get you squared away with any answers that you need. There will also be a recording that is sent out within 5 days of this live webinar, so keep a lookout for that as well. And thank you both again, and thank you again to AMCS for hosting hosting this webinar today. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you to both.
Recycling today. Thank you, Reworld. Okay, thanks everyone.
Take care.